It came at 6:12 in the morning, an email from Rhys. No greeting, no explanation. Just a subject line, termination of contract. I was still in the lab, still in my hoodie, still half asleep with serum on my fingers. The air smelled like orange oil and dust. One of the fridges clicked shut behind me. I read the message once, then again. My husband had just fired me from the company we built. Where in the world are you listening from? Tap subscribe if you've ever trusted someone too much and it cost you everything. We started Voss Labs in my kitchen, back when money was tight and dreams were big. Rhys had the charm, I had the formulas. He'd pitch, I'd blend. Some nights we'd fall asleep on the floor surrounded by sample jars and shipping boxes. Back then, everything smelled like caffeine printer ink and bergamot. We got married the same week we signed our first seed round. I wore white. He wore his lucky navy suit with the crooked hem. We toasted with cheap champagne in plastic cups, and I thought, we're going to build something real. And we did, for a while. By year 3, we had an office in Austin. By year 4, we had a team. By year 5, we had money. That's when things started to shift. He'd started referring to it as his company in interviews, stopped looping me in on product calls, told investors I was mostly creative. I heard that one through the wall. At first I laughed it off. I don't need the spotlight, I told Janae. She can have it, she'd mutter, rolling her eyes. Delaney, you are the spotlight. I didn't argue, I just kept working. We'd grown fast, but we hadn't grown together. The man who used to hand label every jar with me now spent most of his time managing perception. The lab was my space. He stayed upstairs, behind locked doors, with lawyers. And a new executive assistant I didn't recognize. He started pushing for full CEO control. Said the board wanted it cleaner. Said couples running companies together was messy. I reminded him we'd signed a 50-50 founding agreement. He said that was before we had a real business. The worst part, I still wanted to believe he'd come around. I'd built the flagship line myself. I'd worked through strep throat and sprained wrists. I'd mortgaged my own condo to buy our first equipment. He knew that. And still, he filed to change ownership structure behind my back, then sent that email. Johnny found me in the lab that morning. I hadn't gone home. You look like hell, she said, handing me a coffee. It's official, I told her. He cut me out. She sat beside me, quiet. The fridge hummed in the corner. After a while, she asked, "What are you going to do now?" I didn't answer right away. I was staring at the old notebook under the table, the one where I'd written every early recipe. The pages still smelled like lemongrass and ink. I'm going to remind him, I said finally. Who built this? The Series B pitch was supposed to be my moment. I'd spent weeks perfecting the samples, tweaking texture, adjusting fragrance. Our newest line, Courtroom. Origin for You was my proudest work yet. Lightweight, fast-absorbing, zero residue. It smelled like honeysuckle and crushed rosemary. Investors were flying in from New York. Rhys said we'd pitch as a team just like always. We're strongest together, he'd told me. He even kissed my forehead, like nothing had changed. That morning I wore my navy blazer, the one I saved for moments that mattered. I packed the product trays, triple-checked the presentation file. When I got to the office, the lights were already on. Voices buzzed behind the glass conference room, laughter. But the door was shut, and my name wasn't on the sign-in list. I called Janae, no answer. I texted Rhys. Where should I set up? 3 dots, then nothing. I stood outside the room for 10 minutes. No one opened the door. Through the glass, I saw Rhys smile at the investors. He held up one of my jars, my handwriting still on the label. He turned the product in his hands like he'd made it himself. We call this Origin 4, I heard him say. Part of the new Voss vision. Voss Vision. That wasn't our name. That wasn't our brand. It was mine. He didn't look at the door once, didn't acknowledge me. I walked back to the lab, set the tray down, took off my blazer, and just sat there, listening to the silence. 10 minutes later, Janae came in face, pale eyes wide. I thought you were pitching, she whispered. I was. She didn't speak after that. She just sat with me. 2 women in a cold lab watching a company vanish through glass. The next morning, I couldn't log in. My company email invalid credentials. Internal dashboard access denied. I thought it was a glitch. Restarted everything. Same result. Slack wouldn't load either, and when I tried the lab inventory system, the screen blinked red. I texted it. No reply? I called Rhys, straight to voicemail. I waited an hour, then another. Finally, I walked upstairs to his office. The door was closed. His assistant, a new girl named Kira, looked up surprised. "He's in meetings all day," she said. "Then maybe you can tell me why I'm locked out of our own system." She hesitated, clicked something on her screen, didn't look me in the eye. "I'm not sure. He mentioned a security refresh last night, for clarity and workflow." Clarity and workflow. I was the one who built the workflow. The hallway suddenly felt colder, like the air had thinned. "Let me know when he's free," I said. My voice didn't shake. Not yet. Downstairs, I checked the backups. The old USB system I'd set up during our first year. It still worked. Still mine. But the live system's financial shipping order flow, I couldn't touch any of it. At 4 p.m., Janae appeared in the lab. She closed the door behind her. "You need to know something." She looked around like the walls might be listening. "They had a separate leadership meeting yesterday. No invite for you." Rhys said, "It was time to streamline operations." I felt something twist in my gut. Slow, heavy, almost dull. "What does that mean?" I asked. But I already knew. He's shifting power, moving things quietly. People are scared to ask. Pause line. The fridge hummed behind us. The lights buzzed overhead. Everything too quiet. "He's boxing me out," I said. Janae nodded. "I think he already has." It was Janae again. She called late, nearly 10 p.m. "Check your calendar," she said. Her voice was tight, scared. I pulled it up, blank. No meetings, no alerts. "Rhys just moved the board meeting," she whispered. "It's starting in 20 minutes. "What board meeting?" "The one where they vote on restructuring." She hesitated. "Where they're voting to remove you as head of R&D. I didn't speak, didn't breathe. She added he sent the invites through his private channel. You weren't CC'd. No one noticed at first. I stood in the dark kitchen barefoot, one hand still wet from washing a serum bottle. My chest felt hollow, like something had been scooped out without warning. "You need to get here," Johnny said. "But Rhys already has the votes." Click, she hung up. I threw on a coat and drove fast. No traffic, just the hum of tires and the ache in my stomach. When I walked into the building, the lobby was quiet, dim. The boardroom lights glowed on the 3rd floor. I took the stairs. Outside the glass door, I saw them: Rhys, 5 board members, his lawyer, charts on the screen, my name in bold at the top. He was smiling, calm, polished. I opened the door without knocking. All heads turned. Rhys didn't even flinch. "Delaney," he said smoothly, "this is a closed session." "You're voting on me," my voice cracked. I hated that. "Which is why you can't be present." He turned back to the board. "Let's proceed." I stepped inside anyway. "I have 50% of this company. You don't get to make this decision alone." "That's up for review," he said, still smiling. One board member shifted in their seat. Another looked down. I could smell lavender oil on Rhys's cuffs. It used to be my scent. Janae met my eyes through the glass wall. She was holding something, a folder, a flash drive. I nodded at her just barely. "Let them vote." The email came at 2:17 a.m. Subject line: formal termination. No greeting, no explanation, just a PDF attachment and one sentence. "Effective immediately, your position has been dissolved." I stared at the screen for a long time. The house was dark, so quiet I could hear the fridge ticking. I clicked the file. 3 pages. Dry legal language. Signed by Rhys. Not even a phone call. I checked the company website. My bio was gone. So was every photo of me at events, panels, launch parties. Even the Our Founders page now had only one name: Rhys Voss, CEO and visionary. Visionary, he once forgot to refrigerate an entire batch of prototypes. I covered for him. I opened Slack. I wasn't in it. The admin panel said user does not exist. My access card deactivated. I looked at the office camera feed. Still had a backdoor login on my old tablet. The lights were on. Rhys was there, alone, wearing the same sweatshirt I bought him 3 birthdays ago, typing fast, clicking between files, erasing me. I should have screamed, thrown something, called him. Instead, I just sat there, my hand on the counter, feeling the cold marble under my fingers. My inbox pinged again. One more message. "Please return any company property by Friday. We wish you the best." Like there was anyone left. Like he hadn't pushed them all away. I closed the laptop, pushed it aside. The serum samples were still lined up on the kitchen rack, labeled, sorted, made by my hands. He could delete me online, but not from the product, not from the formula, not from the truth. My phone buzzed again, a message from Janae. "You okay?" I stared at it for a while, then typed back. He ended the chapter. I'm writing the next one. I didn't sleep, just lay on the couch, blanket wrapped around me, staring at the ceiling. I thought about the first time Rhys saw me blending serum at 2 a.m. Said I looked like a witch in a hoodie. Said he loved that I never gave up. Funny how love turns quiet before it disappears. The sun came up slow, weak light, no warmth. I got up, opened the old kitchen drawer we never used. Behind the takeout menus and warranty papers was the folder. Thick, worn, labeled in faded Sharpie are Voss Labs, Founders Agreement. My hands shook a little as I flipped through the pages. There it was. Line 8, in bold. No structural change shall be made without equal vote of both founding parties. He signed it. Same day he proposed. Same day we toasted with warm champagne in plastic cups. He forgot who wrote that clause. I didn't. I called Malik Tran, old friend of my mom, corporate lawyer, no frills, no small talk. He picked up on the second ring. Delaney. He fired me, I said. Pause. How clean is your paper trail, he asked. Immaculate. Another pause. Then good. Because I think we're about to burn his world down. Malik met me at a diner just off Burnett Road. He didn't order food, just black coffee, no sugar, no distractions. He spread out the founders' agreement between us, yellow highlights, red tabs, my initials on every page. This clause, he said, tapping the middle, gives you standing to file an injunction, stops any change of ownership or executive shift until the court reviews it. I nodded, didn't smile, didn't blink. And this email he added sliding over the termination notice. No board vote, no legal grounds, just him, making himself king. I handed him a flash drive, every product formula, dated, logged, signed, my handwriting, my timestamps. He looked at me, impressed, almost amused. You kept receipts. I shrugged. I built the damn thing. Didn't trust anyone to keep track but me. Pause line, the clink of mugs being stacked behind the counter. Someone's fork scraping ceramic. We sat in silence as he read. Then he leaned back. We'll file a temporary restraining order first, then petition to freeze the company's assets. He can't move a cent without board consent, and if he lied about firing you, he's wide open. And the board, they'll flip fast once they realize they backed the wrong ego. He pulled out his phone. Give me your media folder. I blinked. What? You have pictures, right? You two building the brand, you in the lab. Him? Anywhere, not working. I handed him a folder, labeled Early Days. He scrolled, paused on one. Me in gloves, face mask, scribbling on a whiteboard. Rhys in the background playing ping pong with the interns. Perfect, he said. That night I didn't cry. I opened the old laptop, started scanning receipts, printing time cards, highlighting everything he'd ever skipped, signed late, or delegated. By midnight, my dining table looked like a war room. Because that's what it was. And this time I wasn't fighting fair. I sent him a message. Simple, professional, neutral. Would prefer to settle this privately. I'm open to discussing a path forward. Let me know if you're available. He replied in under 10 minutes. Glad you've come to your senses. Let's meet tomorrow, my office, no lawyers. I smiled, then forwarded the message to Malik. He wants to talk, perfect, Malik said. Wear a wire. I hesitated. This isn't a crime show. It's not about TV, he said. It's about leverage. The next morning I wore black, pulled my hair back. No makeup, no emotion. Kira looked nervous when she saw me, didn't say a word. Rhys was already seated, 2 espresso cups on the table. He gestured at the chair across from him, like nothing had happened. I knew you'd come around, he said. This back and forth, it's not good for either of us. I didn't respond, just sat, let him talk. He leaned back. All I'm asking for is a clean break. You walk away, I keep the structure stable, no media circus. You get a payout, 6 figures. Fair. I tilted my head. Fair. He grinned. I mean, let's be honest, you were never really part of the strategic vision. You did your formulas. I turned it into a brand. Pause line. My hand curled around the ceramic cup. Still warm, too bitter. He kept going. And firing you wasn't personal. It was necessary. The board needed to see leadership. You were getting erratic. That was it, the word. Erratic. The one he'd used in the board packet. The justification. And the voting, I asked gently. No notice. No calendar update. He waved a hand. Procedural stuff. You think anyone cares about that? I mean, we've been restructuring for weeks. All the docs are dated. Hell, I had to backdate a few just to make the timelines line up. I didn't blink, didn't move, but inside I was smiling. He'd just admitted it, on record, everything Malik needed. I stood. No need to finish the coffee, I said. You already gave me what I came for. Malik didn't even wait. The moment I handed him the recording he filed, temporary injunction, asset freeze, petition for full reinstatement. It moved fast, faster than Rhys expected. By Thursday, his lawyer was on the phone with Malik trying to clarify some misunderstandings. Malik didn't clarify anything. He just sent them the clip. Rhys admitting to backdating board documents, calling my firing a performance, saying I'd been erratic. That word again. By Friday morning, the article dropped. Founding wife fired from skincare brand. But her receipts tell a different story. The photo they used me in the old lab holding a jar of serum. Rhys blurry in the background laughing with interns. Janae sent it to me with a single word. Boom. Within hours, people started reaching out, former employees, small retailers, even a couple investors. One message read, "We always knew who the real brains were." Rhys tried to get ahead of it, posted a statement online, cold, generic, internal disputes and regrettable miscommunications. But it was too late. Screenshots were everywhere, the email, the quote about strategic vision, even a clip of him joking at a product panel I let her play with beakers. I do the business. It didn't age well. By Monday, the court hearing began. Malik laid everything out. Founder's clause, termination irregularities, recording, digital trail. Rhys sat stiff in his chair, his new lawyer whispering frantically. I didn't look at him, not once. The judge granted the injunction, ordered full freeze on accounts, and ruled that any further exclusion of me would constitute a breach of contract. He was still talking when I walked out, still spinning, still sinking. I didn't wait to hear him finish. Outside, the sky was overcast, soft wind, smelled like rain and asphalt. I took out my phone, opened the company page, clicked edit bio, typed co-founder, product creator, still here. Then hit publish. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Too many marble surfaces, too much echo. Rhys sat on the opposite bench, flanked by two lawyers in tailored suits. He didn't look at me. He looked tired, pale, like someone who hadn't slept in days. The judge walked in, gavel down, session began. Malik stood, calm, buttoned jacket, no theatrics. He laid it out like a blueprint, clause by clause, date by date, action by action. Your Honor, he said. Holding the agreement high, this contract clearly states that no executive restructuring can occur without equal vote from both founding parties. The judge nodded. Continue. We will show that Mr. Voss not only removed my client unilaterally, but also backdated documents, suppressed internal communications, and misrepresented ownership structure to the board and to investors. He clicked the monitor. The email came up. Subject line, formal termination. Then the recording. Rhys's voice filled the courtroom. All I'm asking for is a clean break. You were never really part of the strategic vision. There was an audible reaction, a gasp. Someone in the back murmured, she built the brand. Malik didn't flinch. Next slide photos. Me in the lab. Rhys nowhere in sight. He brought up timestamps, receipts, product logs in my handwriting. Time cards signed by me, Rhys. Not even in the building those days. Then came Janae. She took the stand, steady, clear. I was there when she created the formulas. I was there when Rhys skipped half the R&D meetings. I saw him block her access. I saw the vote move without her. Rhys's lawyer objected. Subjective interpretation. The judge overruled. Ms. Rue continue. I also heard him call her erratic more than once, usually after she questioned spending. That one landed hard. Even Rhys blinked. By the time Malik rested, there wasn't much left to say. Rhys's lawyer tried. Blamed stress, blamed communication failures, blamed me. But the judge wasn't having it. I find substantial evidence of misconduct, he said, and a clear violation of contractual agreement. Pause line. The room froze. I hereby reinstate Ms. Voss as co-founder with full rights. All unilateral actions taken by Mr. Voss regarding ownership, board structure, and executive control are nullified. He banged the gavel. In addition, Mr. Voss is barred from acting as sole representative of the company effective immediately. Rhys stood, shaky. I built this brand, he muttered. The judge didn't even look up. You built the brand on paper. She built it in practice. Outside cameras waited, reporters, microphones, flashes. I didn't speak, just walked past them. Janae grabbed my hand, squeezed it once. You okay? I nodded, almost. Back at the office, the staff stood in silence as I walked in. Some clapped, some cried. One whispered, thank God. I walked straight to the lab, opened the fridge, pulled out a test jar. Origin 4. Still here, still mine. The next day, Rhys's resignation hit the news. Voss co-founder steps down amid legal defeat. Insider calls it a humbling fall from power. He posted a vague goodbye on LinkedIn. Something about moving on, something about new chapters. But no one clapped. His name faded. The headlines moved on. The product stayed. So did I. 3 days later, Rhys tried calling me. Twice. I didn't pick up. Malik said he wanted to talk things over. Said he hoped we could find closure privately. Closure. He fired me through email, backdated my erasure, deleted my name from my own company. No, he didn't want closure. He wanted a rewrite. I blocked his number. Kira, his assistant, resigned, sent me an email. I didn't know how bad it was. I'm sorry I stayed quiet. She wasn't the only one. 3 more staffers came forward. One sent me the Slack threads Rhys bragging about finally taking the reins. Another had a saved copy of the board memo, the one where he called me unstable. Malik smiled when I showed him. This is the kind of thing that gets him barred from future boards, he said. I didn't want revenge, not anymore, not really. I wanted recognition and peace. But the part Rhys never understood was that I didn't need to destroy him. He'd done that himself. I just needed to step back and let it collapse. The day I returned to my office, someone had left a small bouquet on my desk. No card, just rosemary and eucalyptus. Clean, sharp, honest. I sat down, breathed in, then turned on the lights. The company was mine again, but more than that, I was mine again. 6 months later, we launched a new line. Foundation 5. A blend of ginger cedar and blue cypress. Warm, grounded, unapologetically strong. We didn't do a flashy campaign. No influencers, no press. Just me back in the lab, in front of the camera, telling the truth. This company was built by hands that shook from exhaustion by a woman who was told she was just the sidekick. We sold out in 4 days. The brand felt different now. Not just mine, but ours, me, the team that stayed. The ones who believed in formulas more than flash. Rhys moved to Scottsdale. Last I heard, he was trying to start a supplement brand. No traction, no team, just noise. His LinkedIn still said visionary, but no one was looking. Sometimes I think about the night he fired me, how quiet it was, how cold. And then I think about today, how the lab smells like rosemary again, how the lights buzz softly overhead, how we've expanded to 2 new cities, and how I'm still here. If you've ever felt erased, if someone told you you weren't essential or called you too emotional or asked you to shrink for their comfort, don't. You don't need to burn the world down to rebuild. Sometimes you just need to outlast the storm. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? Tell me your story and hit subscribe if you know what it's like to build something real and protect it with everything you've got.